What kind of law enforcement do they have on cruise ships? Now, that's something that I always questioned and wondered myself because when I was cruising, which amounted to 4 months, and I always kind of made a little joke that if I would have been in the United States Navy, I would have got a cruise for free. But I had to pay for myself to cruise for 4 months. Now, it was fun while it lasted, but that wasn't something I actually even thought about when I got on the ship. Didn't even think about it the first several cruises. But then there was a series of things that was happening in my personal life. I started thinking about law enforcement, and because, they were on Facebook, they were posting about all these fights that were taking place on the ship, and they were just showing these people were just fighting and fighting, and then there was some other things that were happening in my personal life, which I'm not going to go into that. I don't have enough time to anyway. And so I just wondered, I was thinking, well, what kind of law enforcement do they have on the ships? And so there was one time we were getting off of the ship, and the police come on the ship when we get there. Now, we kept hearing about the brig, and so that was an ongoing thing that on the ship, when they'd have their little venue events and conferences and things like that, that's for passengers, they're public events for anybody on the ship to go to. That's what they would talk about, the ship's jail and the ship's hospital and all this stuff. But if we wanted to see it, we actually had to pay. So sometimes they would have little events where you could, it was kind of like a ship excursion is what it was, where you could go around the ship, and they would take you on a tour of the ship behind the scenes, but you had to pay. So it was kind of like a shore excursion, but it was a ship excursion, and you got to see where everything was at. And I always kind of thought that would be fun to see where the ship's brig or jail was at. They always talked about the ship's jail. But I got the distinct idea that if they had security there, other than maybe some Homeland Security and former police officers, that it wasn't a lot. Because there was one night, I wrote on Facebook, and then we started seeing some of the foreign workers who were hired from the islands out, different countries and things like that, that they would come out. They were the carnival workers, and they'd be wearing shirts that said security at night. So they were these little short guys who were maybe 5 feet tall. They had on their black and white shirts that said security, and that was about it. It wasn't a whole lot, if